What's up, everybody? I'm David.
I'm Jess.
I'm the husband,
I'm the wife.
and this is Married 15 to Life. How you doing, sweetheart?
Doing good.
We want to welcome all of you in. Thank you for all the love and appreciation that you've been showing us on YouTube as well as on our podcast platforms. Real quick, let's just get this out of the way. If you haven't started following us yet, please click the subscribe button. Please follow us. Click that bell. Comment below. If you have questions you want to ask us, you can leave them in the comments, or you can email us at married15tolife@mail.com. We'd also love it if you could put a voice recording in there. That way we can answer your question and hear the audio as we do so. We've already gotten a few questions come in, so that's going to be great for future episodes. But what a week it has been, Jess. You want to kind of give everybody an update on where you're at right now?
Same old, really. Nothing exciting to report.
How you enjoying your new van?
I love it. It's going great.
You really are talkative today.
I don't like small talk, so.
I can tell. That's not just with public. That's not just with people. That's with me. So what we're going to do is today, we talked a little bit. We actually teased it a couple times in our previous episodes. We're going to talk about our personalities. And so we went back and forth, and there's probably in the future we may do episodes where we do kind of other things to learn even more about ourselves. But you brought up the Enneagram. So what was this? What was it about this test that attracted you to maybe talking about this?
Well, I took this test several years ago, and when I got the results, it was very interesting to me because it was so much of who I am and like the things that are important to me and the things that I'm afraid of and my fears. Like, it was just so accurate, even down to the one I took said, like, probably your favorite TV show is The Office. And it was so weird. Like, that is so true. But
shameless plug. That's one reason why I'm wearing this shirt today.
It's really weird. It's like, man, not to say that this is everything about us, because some people can take it too far. But I do think it gives you a little bit of insight into your personality and helps you learn. If you learn about yourself, then you can learn how to relate to others. Your strengths, weaknesses, things like that. So I thought it was interesting.
Yeah. Upon taking it myself, I at the same time realized there's so much about it. Now, granted, when we talk about mine, let me just go ahead and break this down. So this episode, we're going to talk about Jessica's and what her results were and how I relate to her in our marriage with knowing all that about her. And then the next episode, which will come out next week, we'll talk about my side and what I am and how we relate to that as well. But it's funny taking these. It really does make you ask questions, and it makes you kind of look at things and be like, oh, when I was 10 and I acted this way, that's why. And when I went through high school and looked at it this way, that's why. Or college, and even now, what we're going to talk about the most of it is in our marriage, how we kind of assume these places and how does that look with each other, and how does that look individually, and of course, coming it back, how do we relate to God, knowing this about ourselves. And let me just go ahead and say we're not going to replace what the Bible says about us with these things, but it is cool to kind of look at this stuff through the lens of the Scripture, and be like, okay, wow, this really makes sense, and this is why I feel this way, and this is why maybe when I pray this way, or when I feel people saying things about me, I interpret it this way. Is that kind of what you were feeling as well?
Yeah, I think some people can take it to the extreme and like make this like
their whole life.
Yeah, and that's not what we're trying to do. I know some people don't like the Enneagram stuff. I just think it's a neat tool to be able to learn about yourself, and like that was really helpful to me to learn. Like, I never could tell you what my biggest fear was until I read this, and I was like, yep, that's my biggest fear. Like, it was just it brought some clarity to like the deep thoughts I have and the insecurities I have, and realizing that then you can learn how to pray and how to give it to God and all of that. But until you realize it, sometimes I didn't even know some of this stuff, So interesting.
So we're not going to spend time talking about all the different types, because if you want to know more about this, there's multiple websites you can go to learn about the Enneagram and learn about the different types of the Enneagram and the different results you can be. I do know that the first one is the perfectionist.
I have no idea.
The second one is, they call it the helper, the nurturer. Number 3 is the achiever. Number 4 is the individualist. Number 5, I believe, is the loyalist.
No,
No,
that's
number
6.
number 6 is the loyalist. Number 5 is I cannot
That's
believe.
okay.
I know I can't forget about. I do number 7. I do number 7 is the enthusiast. Number 8 is the challenger, and number 9 is the peacemaker. So number 5 is the one I'm missing. No, number 5 is the number. No, forget it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Somebody in the comments put down what number 5 is. But so anyway, what they do is there's so many different tests you can take. Truity has one. Enneagram Universe has one. Enneagram.com has one. So I know that there's many ones you can take to really get. And how many Enneagram tests did you take?
I don't even know. It's been years since I've took it, so I think
But
you've
known for a long time it was this one, or did you take it again recently and it changed, or
no.
No.
I just knew it was this one.
Okay. Well, going along with what mine is going to be, which we'll talk about, I took this test probably 10 times different because I wanted to get a good cross section of a bunch of different answers. But today, honey, we're going to talk about you.
Okay.
So you might want to use the other one first, the
Oh.
other set, because that's the wing. Yeah. You can also have wings. So basically, whatever number you are. So let's just say you're a 4. You could be a 4-wing 5. Or a 4-wing 3. So you'll go, usually one of the other two numbers will also be high, close to the number that you are. And that's probably which way you lean in terms of your personality. So Jessica, let's just start off with the beginning. What number were you?
I'm definitely a number 6. It was very strong. And that is the loyalist, which this also reminds me of that test that was the animals, like the golden retriever, the otter. We need to do that one day too. That was very
the lion, the otter, the golden retriever, and the beaver.
I was always very much a golden retriever as well. So I think the loyalist kind of goes in with that. I like that it says, just like a brief little roundup here, the committed, security-oriented type, engaging, responsible, anxious, and suspicious.
Wow. Anxious and suspicious, responsible. Jess, if that could put you on a plate, that would be it.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
You want to keep going? What else does it say?
Well, I just think it's interesting because I always thought of those qualities like the anxiousness, the suspiciousness. David will tell you I'm very much a realist.
Yes, you are.
He will have these great ideas, and I'm like, hold up a second, that's not realistic.
Our running joke is, I shoot for the stars, she pulls us back to the moon.
And I always thought that was like a weakness of mine. And I'm not saying that God wants us to be anxious and all of that. I'm not saying that. But I do think there are strengths when it comes to surrounding yourself with people that are realistic, because they're going to see details that you don't necessarily see.
Right.
And so I think this is very interesting because parts of myself that I hated, this almost validates like, oh, I don't know. It makes me feel like somebody sees me.
Right.
Like these aren't just things that I need to keep hidden away. Like this makes sense. This makes sense to me.
So keep going. What does it say is like at the core of a loyalist? Like what's the makeup of what they are?
They are reliable, hardworking, responsible, and trustworthy. Excellent troubleshooters. They foresee problems. That's going back to me being super realistic.
Have you thought about this? What about our children, honey?
Yeah. Have you thought about like the financial part of this or like the realistic part of it?
Who's going to plan this? I'm going to have to do this.
They also foster cooperation. But in the negative sense, they can become defensive, evasive, and anxious, running on stress while complaining about it. They can be cautious and indecisive, but also reactive, defiant, and rebellious. I don't know that that's necessarily.
I think the first 3 words are more you. I mean, you can talk about it more yourself, but
I can definitely be cautious and indecisive.
You are definitely cautious and indecisive. I just need you to choose, David. I just need you to make a decision about this. But also, here's the other thing: when you get stressed or when you get overwhelmed, you run. You evade the situation. I need to be alone right now. I don't want to talk about this right now. Let me cool off. Let me go process. Let me go think.
The whole like fight or flight thing, I'm definitely flight or freeze.
Which is funny because the stereotypical in society, the stereotypical in the marriage is the husband doesn't want to talk about it. The husband, I'm going to go wash the car. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to go drive.
Well, I think when we're
and the woman wants to talk about
when
it.
it comes to like when we have a disagreement, I actually am more the one that's like, no, let's talk about it. Like, I don't want to take a break. I want to fix it. But I think that's also when we talk about the fears, that is also because I have the fear
Right.
of my security being taken away.
Correct.
I have the fear of not feeling safe. Not that I don't feel safe in our marriage, but just that shakiness of like, I don't like when people are upset with me. I don't like conflict.
Right.
It's very, very uncomfortable to me. So if we have a disagreement, I'm much more likely to say, no, let's keep talking about it, work it out. Even when sometimes you're like, let's take a break, come back.
Well, and that is true, but there have been many, many times when you will be upset about something and I'll be like, what's going on? You're like, I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Or I'll be like, did something happen, or what did I do wrong? Or so, a lot of times what will happen is when we begin an argument and we both quickly realize this is going to not just be a quick fix, at that point you're like, I need to get away, or I don't want to deal with this
and it's
anymore.
not necessarily, I think it doesn't really, we don't argue that much.
No, we don't.
But when there is a major problem that's going on, I don't really have really major problems,
No.
but if there's something going on, I like to kind of retreat and think about it a
Mm-hmm.
lot. I'm very much, and it says on here, overthinker. It's not that these type of people don't think at all. They overthink.
Right.
But that can also be very paralyzing, and that can also make you very indecisive because you're constantly worried, well, if I choose this, what about this? And you don't want to make a decision. You don't want to go wrong. And so you're constantly questioning yourself, which also can make you kind of freeze up and not make any decision.
Now, before you jump into the next paragraph of like the major characteristics, let's go back in time, because I remember hearing an interview with Jim Carrey where he talked about everybody in life has a speck of sand that enters their life at some time, and then they begin to build, like an oyster does, layers upon layers upon layers around that speck of sand until it becomes what, from the outside perspective, everybody thinks, oh, this is a gorgeous pearl. But from the person who created it, they don't see the pearl. They see the speck of sand. They see the irritant. They see the thing that's made them who they are. And so, like, for some people, that could be a traumatic event in their childhood. It could be a way of trying to find common ground with their siblings, with their parents. It could be something they missed out on that they wish they had achieved when they were younger. So when you read about the loyalist and you read about, the characteristics of a loyalist, can you go back and remember, even as a child, like maybe some areas that I'm not trying to be your therapist here, but do you remember as a kid any of this stuff when you read this? Like, oh, so when I was a kid, this is why I felt this way, or why.
Well, and I think some of this is just, this is the personality God made me with, but then some of it is life experiences kind of like formed who you are as well. So we were kind of talking about this before, and I don't remember feeling this way, but it could make sense that I felt this way. When I was in first grade, we had a house fire. And in one day, thankfully, nobody was home. We were all safe. I was at school. My mom was at the grocery store, and she came in and our whole house was on fire.
Wow.
And in first grade, I lost everything. Like every toy, everything. Like we had to move out of our house. They had to completely redo it. And I remember not wanting to go back in that house. Like even when it was like, oh, look, let's paint your room. Let's look at all our new stuff. Like even when it was done, I remember sitting in the car not wanting to go in and being afraid. And when we would say our nighttime prayers, we would always end the prayers by saying, pray we have no bad dreams and no fires. Like I just constantly.
You needed a security blanket.
Yeah, I was afraid of fires. I was afraid because that took away my sense of security.
Wow.
I remember for months after it happened that my dad would bring us a new toy because we had no toys. Mm-hmm. And he would let us pick out new toy. And we, thankfully with insurance and stuff, we got all new stuff, but that still doesn't replace all. And like my little baby doll, I still have it, but she got all smoky. Like all of our stuff was smoky. It was just kind of a shock to the system. And then moving forward into my teenage years, I went through a lot of health stuff. I talk about this on my channel. I have a whole playlist about it, but I don't want to get into the whole thing because it's a long story. It was like a 4-part video I did on it. But I went through a really hard health journey. I had 2 different major things, the biggest being an AVM in my brain. I lost my hair. Again, I think that was a blow to my security.
Absolutely.
And I remember when
because you couldn't control any of it.
You couldn't control any of it. I remember them saying I was going to lose my hair, and I'm thinking, okay, no big deal. I just want to live, But then when your hair starts falling out, it was really, really hard. It not only was hard because I feel like sometimes my hair is my security because it's one of the things I like most about myself. I have a lot of hair, the blonde and all that natural. I just really have always liked my hair. And so that really hurt, which this says, failure of self-confidence is really hard for a type 6. And so anyway, and then not only that, but just people being able to look at me and tell that there's something going on was really, really hard. And not only all of that, but the 6s, their basic fear, like their biggest fear is loss of security. Mm-hmm. And
being unprotected,
support system failure, anything like that. And so I had so many people that were so supportive and all of that, but I also had friends that didn't really know what to do.
Right.
They were teenagers themselves, and I had people that, I didn't really stay friends with because I was going through all this stuff. And so that was hard. I felt like I lost so much of my security. Thankfully, I had a wonderful family and friends, but I do think that kind of made me even more protective of myself, my people I love close to me, my security system, my support system. And so that really just kind of influenced that too.
So in thinking about a 6, and what I love about the Enneagram is it breaks down the details of who you are into such a very easy to understand way. Like what are the ways a 6 thinks? Like when a 6 encounters something or when a 6 is in a situation, like what's their default? How do they think about things?
It just talks about how they are overthinkers and they fear making important decisions, not because they think they're going to necessarily make the wrong one. But it is that. But they also overthink all these little independent details as well. And so that's totally me. And at the same time, I don't necessarily want people making decisions for me either.
Oh, no, you do not.
Now, I do get to the point sometimes where I'm like, I just don't know, you pick.
Right.
But a lot of times I'm like, no, if you try to make a decision for me, then I overthink your decision as well. Mm-hmm. But yeah, big on not wanting to disrupt, security is my biggest thing when we've had job loss.
Yeah.
And health, even the kids being sick when they were little, even just little things.
Nate's diagnosis with autism.
All of that was very hard on me.
It shakes your whole foundation.
Yes.
Yeah.
And people will say, if you had $100,000, $1 million, what would you do? And everybody wants to talk about, I would put it in the bank.
Yes.
Because I want that security. No matter what job we lose, what thing we will have,
And I can tell financially because recently, because of the car and because of what we've been going through, because of just life, we've had and I've been putting this before the Lord, we've taken some financial hits. And when you do that, to keep your checking account flowing so you can still keep buying groceries and buying clothes and buying everything you need to just live your everyday life, you have to go into your savings. Every time you say the phrase, I'm going to have to move money out of savings, there's a pain on your face.
Oh, yeah.
So
it hurt. It physically hurts because I constantly want to move money into that. And people will say, well, that's why you have savings, but it's I understand that, but I'm constantly thinking of, well, what if something else happens? And then we don't have savings for that. And ultimately, I know our security does not come from any of those things. And it's been something now that I realize this. Like I said before, I never really realized that my biggest fear was loss of security. Mm-hmm. And when I realized this, it made so many things make sense. And I've had to put that before God and go, you know what? That's true. That is my biggest fear. But ultimately, that's because I've been putting my security into the bank account, into the people around me, into all that, and it isn't been put into God.
Right.
And God has to be that source of security. And so it's something that I'm constantly trying to get better at doing, which I think is very helpful when I took this test to even realize it, because I didn't even realize I was doing that. I didn't realize that when we would have, a career move, a church change and all that, I knew it was hard, but I didn't realize why it was so hard. It wasn't that we had to move. It wasn't that we were, it was that loss of, I don't know what's coming next. Mm-hmm. And are we going to have money for groceries? And God has always been so faithful. So it's like, well, why do I feel that way? But I think it's just that innate thing that I want everybody to be taken care of. I want everybody happy. I want all my ducks in a row kind of thing.
Now, when you were taking this, and while you're looking at the next thing, one of the close relatives of the 6 is the 2, which is the nurturer and the helper. And they want to make people happy. They want to feel needed and validated. And so I know that a lot of people, confuse 2s with 6s. Like, and typically, the 2 will put the other person's needs ahead of their own because they feel valued in making everybody else happy and making everybody else's needs met. But with you, there is
which I think I do have a lot of that
and
too.
I would say the 2 is probably very strong up on your list as well. But from a 6, when you say I want to make sure everybody's protected, I want to make sure everybody's taken care of.
I'm talking about
it's
my little ducks, my family,
Yeah.
The people closest to me that I feel like I'm responsible for. Now, I do care about others and I want to help out and do everything I can to help others too. But my innate desire is to keep the people close to me cared for, protected, provided for.
Right.
That's my biggest,
So as a 6, your personal security is also linked to, is everything in my life secure? Is
Right.
everything in my life taken care of and protected?
And when it isn't, when there's a hit there, it's very anxious feeling.
Right.
Even if it's something small.
Like having dishes in the sink.
Yeah. well, I don't know if that goes, but
This is not where this is supposed to be. These are not secure here. These are not...
I have these systems, and it's like...
This is the way it's supposed to be. Actually, a 6 and a 1 might be kind of cousins because...
Well, and I think they're so... when you take these tests, nobody is a straight...
No.
I feel like it's very rare to have a straight...
Right.
You're a 6 and you have none of the other ones in you. I think that I am...
Oh, wait till my video. I'll prove that's true.
But when we even talk about the animals and the golden retriever, and that I was always very strong in golden retriever, which is, the loyalist kind of, the trustworthy.
Your hair helps that too.
But then also I have a lot of beaver
Yes,
in
you
me,
do.
like the analytical, making sure, and that
This is
also
the way this has
in
to be.
here.
This is the system in which this works.
The order
Yes.
and the structure of things is very important to me.
Yes.
I don't want to willy-nilly go about anything. I'm a planner. I will overthink, and it goes back to the overthinking. I will overthink everything.
Right.
Because I don't want anything to go wrong.
Absolutely. So what else did you have?
That's really all that I saw that stuck out.
As far as what a 6 is? Now, let's go back to life then. So what about when you discovered your calling for, when you went to college, you got your nursing degree, but then when you also met me?
Well, even going into nursing, I didn't necessarily want to be a nurse. I thought it would be a good career if I needed to provide for my family.
Something you told me, there will always be a need for nurses.
Right.
It's a secure job.
Exactly. And so I always wanted to be a mom. I always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. That was always what I wanted to do. But in the back of my mind, I thought, well, I'm not just going to not go to college. If I need to work, what would be a secure choice that, I would enjoy? It would be something I'm interested in, but also would be there, would be a stable income,
Right.
and all of that. And so people are always shocked that I didn't really go into nursing that much. I did a few small jobs, and then we started having kids, and I didn't do it anymore.
Well, also you injured your back, and you couldn't do a lot of the nursing.
But it wasn't like this painful, oh man, I don't ever get to do nursing. I am fine with it.
Right.
Because it never was my dream calling.
Right.
It was that decision was made all about having a secure future.
Now, what about with YouTube? Because from the outside perspective, looking in, being a YouTuber, and God has blessed your channel, God has grown it, God has given you a platform, and Blessed Jess will always, as long as you desire to create content, you will have people watching and listening and being there.
I hope so.
But absolutely, and in Jesus' name, you will. And you've only really scratched the surface. It's going to grow with you, and I believe that with all my heart. But when I look at your channel, it's the part of me that I know it was God and not you, is because you had to have done it in the beginning for the desire to just do it, just to have fun with it, just to document. Because if you had thought to yourself, this is something that I'm going to do and I'm going to grow it and it's going to be a source of income for our family, no matter how big, and it's going to be something that I know will always be there. I'm sure those thoughts hardly ever crossed your mind when you first did it, and that's why I know Blessed Jess was a God thing, because there is no security in starting a YouTube channel. There's no for sure
and
deal
even when
with
I
it.
started, there wasn't really people making full-time incomes. I mean, there was some daily vloggers I watched that had just, decided to go full-time and just do that. It was very rare.
Or
though.
specialty business channels in the beginning.
But it wasn't like it is now where there's content creators that did this full-time. It just wasn't like that when I started 9 years ago.
Right.
And so
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to share our life. I wanted to share how to get good deals at the grocery store. And I really started it as a support system for myself trying to lose weight. Now, it took me like 8 years to get going on that, but I tried and I wanted that support and that security of other people doing it with me. And so that's really why I started it. We didn't know a ton of people. I didn't have a lot of close friends, and I just wanted to be able to connect with other people in a kind of safe way.
Gotcha. So when it comes to let's dive a little bit into your side of it in our marriage. We are married 15 to life. So when you look at our marriage as a 6, of course, security in having a place to live and having a safe place for our children, all the does of marriage, but personally, and even you want to give it, and because after this, I want to talk about your walk with God and how that factors in. But between you and me, because I'm going to talk in a little bit about how I relate to you as a 6. But what are some things that you have discovered about yourself being married to me as a 6 that this is why this is this way with me, or this is why I see things this way, or things like that?
Well, just going back to when we were dating, and I've said this before, David was the first person I dated that I felt secure with. I wasn't constantly thinking you were going to break up with me. And I don't know why that was in my other relationships. I just had this feeling of any day they could break up with me. And it was a very paralyzing feeling because that was earth shattering to me. But when we started dating, I never felt that from you. I never felt like you were going to call me and say, no, breaking up with you. And that's just kind of how our relationship is. I do feel very safe with you no matter. And I think that's also because we've gone through so much.
Right. And I'm still here.
You're still here. We're still making this work. And the hardest thing is your job, your career, your calling, and that it's very
up in the air.
It's like it is and it isn't, because
he's up in the air. So.
Ultimately, God orders our steps, and He's never let us down. So I don't know why I doubt that.
And it's hilarious because where we're at now, refuge, which means place of security, place of safety, place of running to. Yeah, and it's funny. The Lord spoke to me in the process of this and said, this isn't just a name of a church. You and Jess will find refuge. You will find your place of identity here.
In ministry, just feeling like, I don't know, like at home somewhere.
Right.
And that's hard for me.
Right.
And also that feeling of belonging. And then also constantly worried, are they going to fire us?
Okay, talk about that, because... And we're not going to name names, but in Texas, in Georgia, in Indiana, and sometimes even here in Arkansas. And we're going to do a whole nother episode on all the places we lived and all the different dynamics of it. But anytime I tell you I'm going into a meeting as a 6, go.
I freak out. I've gotten to the point where I tell him, just don't tell me. I don't want to, when if he has a meeting with our pastor, I don't know why I do know why. It's because in meetings before, it's been critical.
Right.
A lot of people think working for a church. I saw something about this, and it was like a reel or something. I always find the best stuff on reels. But,
yes, you do.
they were talking about how people are like, yes, I'm going to start working for a church. And, they love their church and they're excited about it. And the church is awesome. I love going to church. I love hanging out with everybody. And they said it's kind of like starting to work at a restaurant, like your favorite restaurant, because then you get back in the kitchen.
Yes.
And you see how things are. And not that.
No one wants to see how the sausage is made.
Nowhere we've been has been a bad place. Like God's hand has been there. There's been wonderful people.
We were supposed to be there. Yes.
We were 100% supposed to be there, but it doesn't mean that there wasn't hard days and we weren't criticized over what I feel like is not important things, And so every time we would have to move or whatever, be in this big meeting that you were in, that we would find this out. And so anytime you have a meeting now, like that same fear, even though I know like everything's fine.
And even if it worst case scenario happens, God has got us.
God has protected us. He has brought us here. But it's that, like, I say, like, PTSD of you have a meeting, like, I hope everything's okay. And I just have to let that go. And I'm really working on letting it go. But if you ever tell me you have a meeting, that initial thing is like fear.
Right. So go further now into, so you feel safe with me, secure with me. I know being in ministry provides stresses for you. Also, lack of security in
financial.
Absolutely. For those of you out there, pastors
don't get paid much.
Don't get paid much because we are. I hate to say this, we're at the mercy of our congregation. If you have a congregation,
and the church isn't a business, so
no,
we're
it's
constantly, taking the money we have and spreading it around the community and doing things. And I get that. But at the same time, things are always tight. And
teaching your people to tithe and give back to the Lord. And yes, most pastors get paid off the tithes of the church because and the Bible talks about that a worker's worth his wage. And the Bible talks about those that are being fed should give back to their teachers and all good things. And that doesn't mean just financially. That means emotionally, spiritually, prayers, and all these other things. But within that, if you have even within that, here's the thing: I can't teach it if I don't model it. So even though it is income of the congregation, we tithe. Oh,
absolutely.
Because
and that is because we have found that we can never give more than God gives back to us.
Amen.
And we have had so many seasons of really tight times where I will look at this is the planner in me, I will look at our expenses.
Right.
I will look at our income, and it's like,
this isn't going to add up.
There's no way that this column is way bigger than this column, and I just have to put it away.
But
God has always been so faithful, and so the planner in me, the one that's like, I've joked, but it's not really a joke. Sometimes, like, I wish you had a job where you just went to work, got a paycheck, you could move up in your career.
Because that's secure.
You could get raises and you could get bonuses, and the ministry is just not like that.
Right. The ministry, maybe second only to military, might be the hardest. But the military, for a six.
There is a lot of security in the military too, because
there's always going to be war.
Well, there is. But what I'm saying is they give great health insurance. They have great benefits. They have, promotions and stuff. And it's just different in ministry.
So let's just put a blanket statement here. For a six, ministry might be the worst thing.
It really has been. But I think God,
maybe a police officer, fireman.
But they have great benefits and great pay.
So literally from every aspect of it, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically, financially.
It's been rough.
This is the hardest for you.
But I feel like God has used it to help me grow.
Amen.
Because if I did marry someone who had this great job and the great bank account, that would be my security.
Right.
And my security has been, I have to put it in God's hands, which is where everyone should put it. But, that has been hard for me to do. And I'm constantly having to fight that feeling of, okay, the bank account is what the bank account is. My security's not found in the bank account.
Oh, he's got a meeting with the pastor right now. Oh, my security's not defined by whether or not we still have a job here, or the Nate did this at school. Oh, my security's not defined in how well of a mom I am. And
exactly.
Wow. So now, like I said earlier, we talked about wings. So we printed off for her, you can be a 6-wing 4, which means you're a loyalist mixed. 6-wing 7, which means you're a loyalist mixed with a enthusiast, or you could be a 6-wing 5, which here we go. We're gonna make up. So a 6-wing 5 means you're a 6 mixed, which is a loyalist mixed
It says with a creativity of 5s.
So, but does it say what the 5 is?
It doesn't really say that, but it does say.
I wish I had my phone right now. I could look it up.
Mine's right there on the floor.
But but the 6-wing 7 is more of an extrovert, and we all know Jessica's not that, so she's definitely a 6-wing 5. So what does it say?
Okay. I was trying to see if it said. Anyway, it says 6-wing 5s are very loyal people who really value honesty and clarity. Mm-hmm. They fiercely defend their values in order to maintain their honor and give a clear life frame. They are huge fans of standardized processes where things are predictable and can be controlled.
Absolutely.
They seem to move away from others because of their independent and self-reliant manners, but they love to be surrounded by good people. So I was reading about this on, I think it was the other one, but it was talking about how a lot of people will say 6s don't like people.
Right.
It's not that they don't like people. They're afraid of people leaving them. So they
or hurting them. Yeah.
They surround themselves with good people, safe people. And so I think that is also very interesting because I'm the type of person who's only had a couple friends here and there.
Right.
I don't like going and meeting with like 50 women at a women's thing. Like that's very uncomfortable to me because I think that goes back into I don't know who I can trust. And we've had this in ministry too. You get close to the wrong person.
And then they leave or you leave.
They leave, or they are not the same person you thought they were.
Correct.
And so I think that is like a protective mechanism as well. Mm-hmm. They are also very creative and very purposeful people.
Absolutely.
If they feel comfortable, they will improve their complete environment. And I think that I'm definitely creative, but
yes, you are.
We talk about this in like the breakfast at church. I feel like nothing I do is innovative, really. I have this way though of
you take other people's innovative ideas and you maximize them.
Like with recipes.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily have the gift of just coming up with stuff. Sometimes I do come up with stuff, but usually it's based on something else that change. And so I have this way of like, I have all these recipes that I have found over the years and maybe tweaked. Mm-hmm. And so people think I'm this amazing cook. I'm not necessarily an amazing cook.
Shut up. Yes, you are.
But everybody was like, but that is a talent.
Yes.
Categorizing things, remembering where you found them, tweaking things, that is what I do.
Yes.
And so I'm not necessarily the person that's going to have the crafts but I will see something easy that I can replicate and I do that. And so people kind of think I'm creative, but I'm not necessarily.
But here's something else that is interesting to me with the 6-wing 5 is that when you say all these things of, tweaking this or needing to control or whatever, again, a lot of people may confuse a 6 with a 1 because a perfectionist is OCD about this has to be done this way, or these rules have to be followed, or I have to make sure that if I don't do this in the exact way it's supposed to be done, or if I break this rule, then that means I'm a failure, I'm a bad person, blah 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 blah. But with a 6, it's not about that ground. With you, and again, we're about to get into the deeper stuff, but with you, it's if these things don't happen, I feel insecure, I feel inadequate, I feel like I can't be myself, I feel like that I'm not contributing the best I can contribute because I don't feel steadfast. I feel like I'm, for lack of a better word, I feel like I'm on a seesaw. There's nothing stable about this. There's nothing secure about this. Basically, is that kind of maximizing what it is? Okay.
Yep. And it also says that 6-wing 5s are on their most basic desire is to reach stability and peace of mind. They strive for security, look forward to reaching secure spaces.
Which cures that anxiousness and fatigue.
Their strengths come directly from their steadiness. And I think I am pretty steady.
Yes.
And they defend order.
Yes, you
do.
And
they have a sharpened eye that can see the tiniest details that
yes,
other people
you can. Yes, you can. I will have a perfect 100-point plan, and number 97 has a problem, and Jessica will see it. And I need you to see it. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so the weaknesses is we overthink.
Yes, you do.
And when we overthink, we can end up lost and frustrated. Mm-hmm. And as we seek security and stability, we're afraid of taking the wrong step. And then anxiety comes in.
Wow.
Because we don't want to mess up. And that goes back again to, we just have to walk in step with God. And we realize that our steps are his steps, not our own. But the anxiety can be there if we don't do that. Yeah. And then when we're anxious, we can struggle to communicate because we feel vulnerable, which is true how I feel a lot of times. And we can withdraw and try to evade reality by doing different activities.
Right.
And that's when I feel like when we were going through the job loss and stuff, and there was nothing I could do about it this past time.
Okay.
And there's nothing I could do about it. I remember I would go for a walk or I would do something else because it's like, if I sit here and think about this, I'm going to drive myself crazy.
Yes, you will.
And it's just very
Let me go do
interesting.
something I can control that I can feel secure in. Yeah.
Yeah. And even now, like when stuff is coming up, I have a tendency. So like next week, David's going to be out of town. And I have some things with the kids that old me would be like, let me think about how I'm going to do this.
Right.
I don't know how I'm going to do this. Like how I'm going to get this person here and this person there and this teacher conferences and all this stuff. And so I've had to tell myself, stop overthinking it. Next week, you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
One day at a time.
Live more in the moment a little bit.
And that's what I have to tell myself because I'm not going to waste this week
Right.
worrying about next week when I can't find the answers right now.
Right.
There's nothing I can do right now. So we will figure it out. Or guess what? If the kids don't make something, they'll all live. Like we'll all be okay.
Yeah.
And I can tend to look at these little details and be like, but it's not. And it's like, I need to be more, just go with the flow sometimes.
Yeah. That makes sense.
It's interesting.
So let's bring this plane in for a landing and talk about saving the best for last, the most important aspect of understanding who you are as a 6, and that's your place with God. Now, you've just quoted a few places. I'll give you another one. Jesus told us, don't worry about tomorrow. Every day has enough trouble of its own. All you have is today. If God feeds the birds of the air and feeds and clothes the lilies of the field, how much more will he take care of you? And then there's also places in the Bible where Paul writes to the church at Philippi, Philippians forgive me. It is at Philippians 2, where he says, be joyful always, pray continuously, give thanks in all circumstances, be anxious for nothing. And then that's this one. Philippians says, Philippians and Paul, where Paul talks about it is that the place we have in our walk with Christ is to be joyful, and it talks about. I wish I had my phone right now to look it up exactly the right words, but basically he talks about that anxiousness gives you nothing. Anxiousness doesn't bring you to anything, but to bring your needs before Christ with prayer and all supplication, make your requests known to God. There it is. And the peace of God, which goes beyond understanding, will guard your hearts and mind in Christ Jesus. There we go. I was reaching back. It's in there somewhere. I got it. But so as a 6, walking through these things with God, and you said that the steps of a righteous man, God has ordered them, that God has already ordered your steps, and you don't have to feel insecure. Your path is laid out for you. But walk us through this. I'm going to shut up now. Walking this out with God as a 6, as a loyalist, as a person who needs security, who needs self-preservation, who needs to know everything around her is going to be okay. How has God worked with you in that?
Well, and it's so interesting because, like I said, before I took this test, I didn't really realize this about myself. This has been very eye-opening the last few years since I've really been thinking about it when I took this test, and how all those things I went through as a kid and a teenager really did shake my security. When we went into ministry, that shook my security. When Nate was diagnosed with autism, that shook my security. I've been through all these things, and I would always think, well, if we could just be at a church that was stable, or if we could just have a bank account that is stable,
right.
If we could just have this that was stable. And the whole time God says, your security can't be found in any of that stuff. Your security cannot be found in a church, in a bank account, in your kids being healthy all the time. I remember when our kids, Nate and Lucy, I don't get like this with Mark anymore, which I feel like that is shown growth.
Amen.
But when they were little and they would get sick, I would be terrified because it's like, well, what if something really bad's wrong.
The
And
what
I would
ifs.
Google everything and I would drive myself crazy thinking about it. And it's like, God says that our security is found in him. And if the worst happens, he'll be there with us.
Right.
But most of the time that worst stuff never happens. Like it was
Yeah.
just a cough. It was just croup. It was just an ear infection or a virus or whatever. And we got through it. But how much time did I spend worrying myself to death?
Yeah.
And so it's very helpful to know this because I can look out for it. And when we move money from savings to our bank account, even though it still hurts, I can just be grateful that we have that money and know that God, he has never made us late on anything. He has always provided in the good times, the bad times, all the times. We've never been late on our bills.
Yeah.
We've always had groceries, even though I go to the grocery store and I get afraid because we are spending more on our groceries than we ever have.
In our lives.
First of all, everybody knows the price of groceries has gone up. Our kids are getting bigger. We're trying to eat healthier, which I feel like is super important.
Yes.
But it's like all of that stuff and the groceries being double what they have been in the past.
Kids growing, they need new clothes.
And that's why,
you have a newer car now, so the insurance and
Yeah.
all the deductible, all of that's going to go up because of that.
Yeah.
So,
And so, I think that's where me trying to save and like go to all these grocery stores to find the best deals and all that, there's nothing wrong with that. But I think that's also me trying to secure something for us.
yeah.
And
If I find the best deal, then I did the right thing by my family so that I can be secure in knowing
if I know
did
that I got Fruit Loops half price, that means we can have twice as many Fruit Loops, for the kids. But at the same time, there's nothing wrong with being wise with your money. And I'm
of course.
still going to do that. But it can't be based on this fear of like the scarcity mindset of if I don't get a good deal, what if we don't have Fruit Loops for the kids?
Yeah, you can't live in a poverty mentality.
So it's eye-opening for me because now that I know and realize this about myself, it kind of helps me know where I need to focus and how to get better and how to, when these thoughts come into my mind, how to pray about it and give
Right.
it to God. Because like I said, I knew some of these things about myself, but I didn't really understand why when we went through hard times, it wrecked me so much.
Yeah.
I just thought, well, it's a hard time. Of course, it's going to be upsetting. But there's a bigger reason behind that.
Yeah.
And now that I realize it, I can see it coming. I can work on it. But yeah, it's very interesting to me.
Jessica, I sent this to you recently. What does your name mean? Do you remember?
Gift of God, isn't it?
No, that's Matthew.
I think it's Jessica too.
Well, Jessica might be a version of it.
There's so many different names.
But Jessica,
meanings for my name.
Jessica's,
I'm going to Google it.
go ahead, but your prominent one that I remember is one who has vision, one who
don't remember
sees, one who sees things clearly.
It means God beholds or wealthy.
Well, there you go. But I also remember it says sees clearly.
It does say it comes from the Bible name Iska,
Okay.
and that means vision or sight.
So I remember that.
I don't know how Jessica comes from Iska.
Jessica.
I guess.
I guess so. But yeah, behold, or one who is wealthy. So, but
where does your wealth come from?
exactly, the root of it is your wealth comes from you see things clearly. You see things as what they truly are. You see things from God's perspective.
And realizing that God owns everything,
Yes.
and you're His child, and so you are wealthy.
Yes.
We're wealthy because we have more than someone that has a big bank account because God owns every bit of
Amen.
money. So He's going to take care of us, but we have to constantly realize that. And it's like, if we truly believe in who we say we believe, how different should we act?
Yeah. And when it comes to our finances, what I've been praying lately is the Bible says that that God will restore what the locusts have eaten,
Yeah.
and that what the enemy steals, He has to pay it back.
Well, and it's like,
And so
it's not
I've just
the
been
car. It's
yeah.
been, y'all, our coffee pot died.
Yes.
It's been like the littlest stuff. The kids all need new clothes. Nothing from last year.
and all of these things seem minute, but when you take
pile
them,
all together.
but when you sum them all up, but also when they are bam, bam,
Yeah.
bam,
Yeah.
bam, it's like I'm getting shot at right
Yeah.
now. And so, and usually exactly when it feels that way. And so I went before God and said, God, we are under attack. We are under financial attack. Sometimes you're under sickness attack. Sometimes you're under mental attack. Sometimes you're
And
under.
all of you know what we're talking about. Like when you're just like, can anything else happen?
Exactly.
Like,
When Murphy's Law begins to
Yeah.
take effect, everything
Yeah.
that could go wrong does go wrong. But typically when that happens, what we're supposed to do is immediately do a self-assessment. God, did I open a door to this? Did I do something wrong? Did I get off your path? Am I not keeping your word the way I should? And typically 9 times out of 10, you may have overseen something or this or that, but most of the time it's because you're doing something right. Most of the time it's because you're moving forward into what God says you are. And so the enemy, well, what he'll do is he'll distract you, or he'll start sending things your way, or because my car accident was the result of a distraction. You're losing the car. We had zero control over that. The kids growing up, we can't help that. Groceries growing up, we can't control that. So all these things that are happening left and right that are draining our finances, it's an attack of the enemy to make you get your eyes off of your security and get them onto things you can't control and make you feel insecure.
And the enemy is so cunning, because how many times does that work?
Exactly.
When you're like, God, and we blame God. We're like, God, where are you?
Yeah.
And it's like, he's always there, but our security can't be found in those things.
Right.
And so anyway, I want to do better, even though I think I am doing better.
You're doing much better.
I still could improve more.
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to the story in the Bible that I love to preach, where Jesus tells his disciples, let's go to the other side. And while they were going to the other side, he fell asleep in the boat. And you could read this story and be like, well, they're fighting a storm. Why isn't Jesus helping? They're panicking, and the water's getting in the boat. And they're afraid they're all going to sink.
And how many of us would be the same way?
Exactly.
Jesus,
they
help us. What are you doing?
Yeah, do you? That's
do you care? Do you care? And we say that to him too, don't we?
God, do you not care? They woke him up and said, do you not care? We're about to die. Would you please help us? And Jesus stands up, calms the storm, and says, where is your faith? And when you read that, you may think, oh, that's harsh. Any of us would have gotten upset, or any of us would have gotten insecure about it. Anybody would have panicked in this moment. But one of my favorite preachers said it this way: Jesus was in a boat in the storm, but there was no storm inside him. He had peace. That's why he could sleep through it, because Jesus had said to them, we're going to the other side. Mm-hmm. So even in the middle of a storm, they were going to make it, because the master said, we're going to the other side. So when I wake up from my nap, boys, I expect this boat to be at the other side, because I said, and my Father has told me, we're going to the other side. And so if they had leaned on the word and leaned on the man who was in the boat with them, they needed to bail the water out. They needed to keep sailing. Yes, the storm was going to happen, but they were going to make it. This panicking of, I'm going to die, and what's going to happen, and why don't you care, God?
Like
That's the
human
insecurity.
nature too, because they knew Jesus and his miracles. They knew, they saw, and they saw firsthand with their own eyes, and they still had this first reaction. And so it makes sense that we have that same reaction,
right?
That of panic.
Yeah, and so many times we can read the scriptures and get angry at the characters because we see the end. We've already seen it.
Right.
We've read the end of the book. We know what happens at the end of the story.
But we do the exact same thing.
Exactly. But when it's our lives and we're in the middle of it, how many times do we rage at God and go, why?
I get so mad at the children of Israel. I can't even read that story because I get so mad. But it's like, how many times do we do very similar things and forget God's provision for us, get, his faithfulness.
Yeah.
They just saw this water part and the Red Sea and all that, and then they're still complaining.
Literally within the last 2 episodes of the podcast, we talked about like 2 or 3 miracles God did in our life. And then we start seeing grocery prices and clothing prices and insurance going up. And we're like, God, where did...
Yeah.
It's human nature. And but again, with you, I guess the best verse for you probably with this is...
My favorite verse growing up, and I still think it's my favorite, is trust in the Lord with all your heart.
Proverbs 3, 5, and 6.
Lean not on your own understandings. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight.
Right.
Because we can't make our path straight on our own.
Nope.
We have to trust in him and lean not on our own understandings. Mm-hmm. Our own understandings are the groceries are going up, the job loss has happened, the health thing has happened. That's what we can understand,
right.
But his ways are better.
Yep.
We just had a car accident, but he had this other thing on the other side of that God worked out that car situation to where I got a better car.
Your dream car.
Safer car. And, I don't think it was good that your mom was in an accident. It was horrible. But God always kind of brings the good out from the bad.
Yeah. And with you being, at this place of, knowing who you are in Christ and knowing that God is your Father, Jesus talks about and said, the wise man builds his house on the rock. That when the storms come and the waves beat against the house and the wind beat against the house that was built on the sand was demolished and flattened by the storm, but the house that was built on the rock was still standing.
Yeah.
And so as a 6, knowing that you need security and you need loyalty and you need to know things aren't going to change, what more unchanging, immutable thing is there than God and God's love? That's where you have to build, because that's never going to move.
Because he's never going to fail. Right. Other people can fail. The economy can fail. Our country can fail. But he never fails, and he never leaves, and he is the security. He's
the same yesterday, today, and forever.
That's right.
Yeah. Are there any closing thoughts that maybe you want to speak to anybody watching out there that maybe you're a 6 and you're watching this right now?
If you're a 6, I hope this encourages you, everything we said, because, there is so many positives about being a 6. I don't want to just keep harping on the negatives, but the negative is a big one, and it's not too hard. It's not like, well, this is just who I am, and so I'm just going to keep struggling with this. You can give it to God.
Amen.
You can put your security somewhere else. But shout out to all my 6s out there. Shout out to all the dogs in the crib or whatever Cam said.
We just got off of Big Brother. Yeah, Cam's like, shout out to all my dogs in the crib. Oh my gosh, it's so funny. That's so funny. Well, Jess, I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
And I'm very thankful for this journey with you.
Oh, it's like 80 degrees in here.
A little bit. Thankfully, the air conditioning's kicking on a little bit, But yeah, I'm very proud of you. In the next episode, we're going to dive into me, and this is going to be crazy to unravel this onion and all the layers of it.
You can't be simple.
No, not at all. And so we're gonna dive into me, and I'm gonna be able to sit back here, and I'm gonna be interviewed, and let Jess ask me a bunch of questions.
I'm not a good interviewer.
Well, then you can just reflect and say things that may spark other things. But I'm excited about it because, and I'll read a little bit in the next episode about how my number relates to her number, and we can talk about that as well.
I read that in one of the things you gave me, that our pairing is almost very rare. It's very rare.
It's very rare.
Which is very interesting.
Yep.
Cool.
So typically, my number and your number,
we wouldn't be attracted.
We wouldn't.
But they do say when done well, it works very well.
When done well, it's a perfect pairing.
Yeah.
And I think we are.
We are.
I love you.
I love you too.
So again, everybody, we love all of you as well. Like, comment, subscribe, click that bell. Make sure you follow us on the Spotify, on Apple Music, on all the different platforms you can watch or listen to. If you have a question, leave it in the comments.
I was going to ask you too, what all platforms are we on? I know we're on YouTube and Spotify.
We're on YouTube, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple Music, we're on Amazon Music, we're on Deezer, we're on Castbox.
I don't even know what those are.
iHeartRadio, we're on all of them. So anywhere if you love listening to podcasts, just search for Married 15 to Life. We're probably going to pop up, and share us with people. Seriously, if you love this content and you love, and we're an encouragement to you, or we're a help to you in any way, you probably also know someone else that needs to hear a lot of this stuff. So please share this. This is not a pride project. This isn't an ego project. We felt led by God to do this because we want to help people, and we want to also explore our marriage with each other. I look forward to doing this podcast, not just for the chance to get our faces and our voices out there. I would, and I told Jessica one time, if we never hit record, I would do this because it's something for her and I to connect more with each other. So we're doing this as much for us as we are for any listeners or any viewers out there. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments or email them to, don't mail them. We'll be
fax them.
Fax them. Yeah. Email them to married15tolife@mail.com, married15tolife@mail.com. If you can put an audio recording in there, we would love to play those audio recordings back and listen to them and hear them. We'll be doing some episodes here in the near future based on your questions, and we'll be taking your questions and answering them. So please give us some stuff to answer. We would love to hear about it. But until next time, I'm David.
I'm Jess.
I'm the husband.
I'm the wife.
And this is Married 15 to Life. We'll see you later, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.